I was watching War of the Worlds earlier today.
Oh,
speaking of Scientology,
is that Brad Pitt?
It's Tom Cruise.
War of the World. Hold on.
With the tripod looking things that shoot out the blood, like they kill humans, and then they utilize their blood to like fertilize the land.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
It's sick.
I was thinking of World War Z, but
that was a good one.
War of the Worlds. Is that?
Why am I thinking of the one?
War of the Worlds is really, really good, and the graphics, the fucking CGI or whatever stood up to the test of time. I thought it wasn't horrible.
Is that the one where he had a female co-star and she was like a badass, and like they kept dying? Or
no, it's Tom Cruise, and then he's with like his kids most of the movie because he's trying to save his kids.
The one where he keeps dying is good. I think that's the one you were just talking about.
Yeah, I just
are we recording?
Yeah, we are now.
Do you guys think that Tom Cruise is the greatest action movie star of all time?
Actually, I mean,
he's kind of hard to contend with, right?
Jackie Chan, man.
Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan also did all of his stunts.
Jackie Chan's in a lot of movies too.
There's a lot of movies
that we've never heard of.
Right.
You know,
hella, yeah. Yeah, we saw.
Jackie Chan's made a lot of money too. Don't be sleeping on him. Like he's fucking crushed it.
He's made like a Mortal Kombat game too. A really, really bad one.
Really?
Fucking horrible. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was back when Mortal Kombat was super popular. I got like hair in my mouth. Feel like I'm still at jiu-jitsu. But no, it was when Mortal Kombat was huge and everybody was making a bunch of knockoffs.
Jiu-jitsu was mentioned 45 seconds into the podcast.
I just had to let everybody know.
I hate this show.
Put them on notice.
Jiu-jitsu, functional patterns, Goda. I'm just going to say it. I get it all out in the beginning
here. Get all the red flags out now.
Carnivore. Just keep going with it. Make everybody mad.
Meat-based.
Well, I mean, dick. That's to be mentioned.
Penis.
If you guys are listening, you know, we're just getting it out. Tom Cruise, best American action star up until this point. Jackie Chan, best worldwide action star. I'd imagine that Jackie Chan movies have probably been seen in more places than Tom Cruise movies. Yeah. I could be totally wrong, though.
I wonder what the age difference is with those two.
And there's a lot of people in China. A lot of people in China.
Is that another thing that we're not supposed to say, or is that okay?
No, he's just whispering it just in case somebody hears it.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I don't want to.
His Siri is close by.
Well, where does Sylvester Stallone stand against Tom Cruise?
Well, as my buddy Russell put it, he said, I can't even say it with a straight face. He said Rocky 1 and 2 is the best movie of all time. I said, that's 2 movies. It's like he goes, I know, but if you collab them together, he's like, it's like the greatest movie ever. I'm like, that's weird, Russell. I don't think you could do that.
I have to also say this. Rocky movies burn me at the stake, but I watch them. They're just so cheesy, dog.
Oh, well, it's really old, you know.
You know, I could understand, like, when did it come out? In the 70s?
Mm-hmm. 1976.
And they are good movies. Don't get it twisted. I think they're good. But if I was a kid in the 70s watching Rocky, I'm like, yeah. But I'm a kid in the 90s watching Rocky, I'm like, what? It just...
Yeah, well, by the time it went to, like, Rocky 4, and he's, like, fighting the Russian or whatever, like, starts... there were so many different iterations of it. Well, there's... You know, it's... those movies had like montages, you know, they had like those training montages that became famous.
They're some of the best music.
Yeah.
It's so good to work out to. I love that.
Another Creed is coming out too, right?
Yeah.
Creed 3 is already out. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's good.
March.
It's out. It gets in good shape.
It's out.
It's out.
Yeah.
Okay.
No way. Is it? No. 3/3/23.
You're right.
See? For
Andrew's
Creed
right.
3.
Andrew's right.
I'm going to take Stephanie to that. I can't wait. I want to go see it.
Now, the fight scenes in the Creed movies, because I'm obviously more current, but like those get you pumped.
Oh, the stuff in the ring in any of those movies, I mean, they did a good job. I mean, that's got to be... I know in Rocky and stuff, they talk a lot about how they, you know, actually were hitting each other, and like that's got to be painful. Doing that shit every day. That's got to be hard. And then how hard did Carl Weathers have to work to try to make Rocky look good when they were running on the beach?
He really had to
so
sandbag,
jacked, bro. He looked so good, man.
Yeah, I also wonder too, like size-wise, like Sylvester Stallone got in incredible shape. He looked amazing. And I think he probably still is in pretty good shape. But Carl Weathers was a professional football player.
He was?
Yeah, I think he played like linebacker or something in the NFL for a little while. Might have played for like the Raiders. And he was in crazy shape. Oh yeah, these guys pretending they're hitting each other and they start whacking each other pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Did he actually get tagged a little bit there?
Probably.
He went into it a bit and then he like flung himself. So
Damn.
The dead legs are great. Sorry again for those listening. We're watching something right now, but we're going to get into this soon.
Oh, looks like he got hit.
Just stick with us. Today's topic is going to be interesting, potentially somewhat triggering, but it's. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this.
Me neither.
But my mom doesn't listen, man.
I hope nobody listens.
Yeah, family members tune out. No, I think we're just talking about, believing things that get passed down from generation to generation, and then do you just believe them? Something like religion, for example. Do you just believe that? Sometimes, in some families and even in some like areas, like I don't know how you guys grew up, but the area that I grew up in. It was it was a little bit like it would probably be in my best interest to get the fuck out of here, or I'm going to end up like everybody else around here. But a lot of people believed that they had to be around their family. They really believed and really felt so strongly that they had to be around their family. And I was like, if I have to stay here and be around my family, I'm not going to be able to become what I want to become. So I'm going to have to start to develop my own beliefs. And I'm going to have to go outside of this like system. And it was hard. Like I'm grateful that my parents were always pretty loose with stuff. You would mention something to them and I'm sure they were like, fuck, that's crazy. I'm sure they went, in bedroom, probably talked about it. I'm like, oh my God, my oldest brother, Mike wants to go to Cincinnati and play football. They're probably like, fuck, that's like Division I. Like, what do we do? Yeah. And then my dad's probably like, well, he's pretty big. I think he can handle himself. Maybe he'll figure it out. Or like when Mike wanted to be a pro wrestler, Chris wanted to make movies. Like there's a lot of crazy shit going on in the Bell household. But my parents were always, they were pretty supportive of it. When we were very young, there's certain things we didn't have a choice with. Like my parents were very religious. I grew up Christian, going to church all the time type thing. But something interesting happened with the church that we went to. I don't know exactly what happened, but the church kind of imploded. I don't know, like if they didn't have money, or I don't know exactly what went down. But we had that, and we went there, every Sunday. We had friends at church. We had, family friends. And then it just kind of slowly kind of died off as that church was like kind of unraveling. And then I think we moved, and then we weren't as close to that area anymore. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have that practice as routine any further. And then my dad was like in the middle of his career he worked for IBM. And so he did have time, like we could have made time to do it, but we just didn't make time to do it any further. And for me, it happened at I would say like a good age, because then I was able to freely start to think about like, what were we going, like what were we going to church for? Like, am I Christian? Like I'm in a Christian household, but do I believe in God the same way my parents believe in God? Do I believe in like, we used to, we would pray. Yeah. Like, do I believe in prayer? Like, I don't even know.
When did you start to ask yourself these questions, by the way? Like, when did you actually start to evaluate your own personal belief?
I think probably pretty young, probably at like 12.
Yeah. For me, it was way later. But that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Yeah. And I think even today, I don't have answers to a lot of these things because I don't really know. Sometimes some things I haven't thought of enough, or haven't thought them through enough to even like give a real answer. But the short of it for me is I think that human beings are just as important as like a tree or a cow or a dog, or I don't think we're any more important, and I don't think we're any less important. And this is like a whole nother topic, and it's probably a different podcast, a different time. I don't believe that we have like a point to be here. I don't believe there's like a reason to be here. I'm a little like nihilistic in that way, but I don't think that that's a miserable thing. I think that's just the way that it is. And some people view that as like a downer. Like, since you don't know why you're here, then why not just be a fuck up? And I look at it in a different way. It's your job to figure out what's your point and what's your purpose in this world. That's a digression a little bit from religion, but that is kind of my belief. And some people, they might find it more beneficial to gravitate towards a religion or to believe in something greater so they can fast track themselves to getting into those positions earlier or sooner, or just feel more comfortable, because life can be really difficult. There's a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of, in this country, things are pretty good, but there's suffering going on worldwide that is just atrocious, that we can't even really fathom. All of our ancestors have suffered many, many different times over, many, many different ways.
Yeah.
Even just things like just surviving the fucking climate, surviving the temperatures outside, and being able to travel, thousands of years ago, and being able to survive on the food and the land and things like that. There's a lot of things that have been very difficult over the years. So it makes sense to think that we have a greater purpose or something outside of that, so that you have something maybe a little bit more to hold on to.
Let me ask you both this, because Andrew, you said you grew up Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think back to your time in the church as a kid or maybe a teenager, do you think that Christianity or Catholicism, do you think it helped you with your personal moral compass? Did it affect any of the good or bad decisions that you made? Like when you were making a decision, do you remember thinking like, WWJD, what would Jesus do? I really want to know this. And actually, people in the audience, whether you've whether you're still, with your religion or whether you've doing something else, think about that question. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'll say maybe, because like especially in a Catholic church, you're basically, I forgot. You're basically always committing sin, and he's forgiving you the whole time, but like you're the bad person, so it's like oh fuck, okay, I'm sorry, but no, I've never needed someone else to tell me what's good or bad, and I've never needed a I'm not going to say, I don't mean made up, but what I mean is like, I don't need a big glorified story of somebody telling me what's good or bad for me to know what's good or bad. I've never once.
So you believe you always had intrinsic good morality since you were a child?
Yes, absolutely. 1000%.
Like to not hurt another person.
Yeah, no, I've
things like that.
Again, so, don't argue about what makes a good man. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. That's what I've always believed in before I ever knew anything about Stoicism. So I would say no. It never influenced me to be a better person, because I already wanted to be that. Do you ever think back to a time? Because I remember, like, for example, there's this learning center that I went to, and my mom put me in, called Kumon, right? It put me forward in math, but I hated the place. So on one day, they had these Kumon packets that you'd have to like sit down and do all your math problems and shit. I didn't want to do it, so I just took it outside and I dumped it in the sewer. And somebody was watching me. Apparently the Kumon instructor, they saw me do it, right? I went back in, acted like nothing happened. And they're like, oh, Nsima, what happened? I'm like, oh, I finished up my Kumon. I lied, right? They told my mom, and I was reprimanded for it. But I did do that again because I hated Kumon. So I knew it was a wrong thing, right? But so what I'm getting at here is like, you get reprimanded for things. You do stupid shit as a kid. I did a lot of stupid shit as a kid. But do you think that, like, did your parents lead you in that direction, or nothing from the way you looked at things or the way you looked at the world came from church? I was, this is going to sound weird, but I grew up with 4 parents in the same household, because my brother and sister were significantly older. They're like 7 and 8 years old.
Yeah.
And they would just be straight up with me and be like, what we're doing is good. What we're doing is bad. Like, we're sneaking out. Don't tell anybody. This is bad. We're going to throw a party. Don't grow up like us. Like, don't do this, or whatever it may be. Yeah. And my parents were very religious, and, they would say good or bad things. But like, if I ever did anything dumb, like break the rules or do something to get in trouble, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to hell for this.
All liars go to HE double hockey sticks.
Yes. It was never that. It was just like,
say the real word.
Oh man. Yeah. It was like
close call.
Yeah.
I was so scared of like saying hell for such a long time.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Like, definitely like thinking like, oh, if you whatever, draw the devil, he's gonna come get you. Like, oh fuck, that sounds scary. I don't want to do that. But it wasn't that. It was if I get in trouble, my dad's gonna beat my ass or something. It wasn't, I'm going to hell.
Yeah. Power Project family, quality sleep can make everything with your health and fitness easier, which is why we've partnered with Hostage Tape. Now, we've been talking about mouth tape for years and nasal breathing for years. But one of the problems that we've had with tape is we all like to rock facial hair, and a lot of the mouth tapes we would use would fall off of our face at night. Hostage Tape doesn't fall off your face if you have a beard or if you're not a man and you don't. I'm joking. You don't need a beard, right? But either way, hostage tape makes sense. It'll stick to your face when you're asleep. You'll have better quality sleep because you're breathing through your nose all night long. It is a no-brainer. And if you head to hostagetape.com/power project, you'll be able to get the Power Project annual deal, which is a year's supply of hostage tape for 55 cents a day. You'll be saving $150 on the typical yearly deal. You're going to get 2 free tins and a blindfold. It's a no-brainer. So head there right now and get yourself some hostage tape. Links in the description along with the podcast show notes. Shut your fucking mouth when you sleep. Enjoy the show.
I think there's so much you can take from religion, and I think there's a lot of positivity to it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think sometimes the rigidness of it can lead to it can lead to more people wanting to not conform to it.
Mm-hmm.
It can lead to all kinds of stuff. I mean, having people in a religion and then not those people not allowed to have any sex is like a really interesting thing, and it sounds to me like an impossible way to live your life,
Dude.
Right?
Dude.
I know where we're at.
Yo, dog.
It sounds hard.
How old was I when I lost my virginity? Maybe 19. 19 years old.
Really?
And yeah.
Damn, you're such a good kid.
Dude, like for the longest time, I was just like, I'm not going to have sex until I'm married. The first girl, right? I get my first girlfriend at my job, right?
Looking like Nsima, I'm gonna wait.
Dog, I really tried. Nah, because like there was
you could say no only so much.
There were some girls in high school that were interested, but I'm like, I'm studying and I have soccer.
Damn,
like,
good
and
for you.
I shooed the women away,
Yeah,
right?
I bet.
But dude, my first job, I ended up with this girlfriend, and I went to her place. And we were watching a movie, right? I was 19. We were watching a movie. I wasn't expecting to have sex. I wasn't even planning on it because, again, that waits for marriage. Well, for some reason, she just gets on top of me and starts making out with me, and then whips out my dick. I'm like, no, yes. It was so quick, dog. But once it finished up and once it happened, I was just like, I guess I'm gonna have to get married to this one.
This isn't Nsima. Nsima's like, no, away, I gotta go study. I just want to go play soccer. Leave me alone, devil. I just want to go learn and become a doctor.
Dude, but you know what, dude? Okay, because of religion, I was very sexually conservative when I was younger, but also because of religion, I felt like the first girl I had sex with, that was going to be my lady. I felt like, okay, well, this one, I'm going to have to stick to this one. Mm-hmm. That's what I really felt at the time because I was so engulfed,
Did you guys go to church or have a Bible around or anything like that? Or
Every Sunday. It was a big part of like, my mom is from Nigeria. My grandma's from Nigeria. My grandma would fast and pray. My mom would fast and pray. We would there would be times that we would fast and pray together. We would like read the Bible, study the Bible. Like it was a very, very, very big part of growing up, and that's why like I do think there are so many good things that I learned from the Bible, because also the church that I went to, the pastor was really cool in the sense that he didn't take everything in the Bible super literally. Mm-hmm. He looked at it as like these stories have this specific message. And it was all good messages of morality, messages of good and bad, and just things you should be trying to do. You should be trying to be
examples
a good human.
of things that are bad, examples of things that are good over and over again, different stories told different ways.
Right? But that is all good. But then there is the other side where it's like there's a benefit to being sexually conservative as a man or a woman, but there's a point where it might be taken too far, and it might make you like feel a certain way and feel like very closed off and maybe too conservative when it comes to things like that. So it's really interesting. And I've had this conversation with my girl. I'm like, damn, with the way because the way now I look at religion is like, I think all different religions have different pieces of the puzzle. I don't think that if you're not a Christian, you're going to go to hell, because that's when I was growing up. That was part of the messaging. Like, people that weren't be able to be saved, well, they wouldn't be able to go to heaven. And for the longest time, I was just like, well, how about just people in parts of the world where they just don't have access? Do they just go to hell off rip?
Yeah, or they didn't have access to this religion. They had access
To
to
another one.
only another religion. And
Oh,
they were
the wrong one. Yeah,
yeah, they were
that's
born
their
into
fault.
it. Like, oh, they're their God is not the same as ours. They're gonna it's that's what always kind of baffled me. I was always like, what is that about? How does that person's spiritual and they're putting a lot of time in and they're reading their version of a Bible type thing and they're doing all the things that they're supposed to do. It's just I don't know. I find a lot of that really interesting. For me, because my mother grew up in like a chaotic environment. Both her parents were alcoholic. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol kind of in her family history.
Yeah.
My uncle died of a drug overdose. As you guys know, my brother died of a drug overdose. Like these things are things that kind of lingered around the family. But my mom's side was like I would just say they were dysfunctional.
Yeah.
It was a really tough. They had a lot of children. I think they had the same amount of children as my dad's side of the family, which is 9 children. So that's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of money. And they grew up in some rough areas as well. They grew up in some areas where, my mom would get like harassed a lot, like and things like that. So I think my mom found religion to be like a huge relief, even though she grew up with some religion. I think they were Catholic, and I think that as she got older, I think, because she grew up in the household that she grew up in, I think that she thought that religion didn't work well for her. And so she wanted to explore something different. So me having some of this knowledge as I grew up, I was like, well, maybe I'll end up like that too. Maybe I'll want to find something that suits me better, that fits me better. Because when my mom found Christianity, it really seemed to help change her life. Then she already knew my dad from so young, but they built and worked on things together. They both went to church together, then they had kids, and then they brought us to church. And it seemed like it was the making of, kind of a normal American household. And my mom would read stuff from the Bible to me when I was going to bed, and she would tell me the interpretations of it. And church itself is just a massive interpretation of all these words that are written in the Bible. Just imagine, like, let's take religion out of it for a moment, and let's just say we're going to read something from a great philosopher. You're going to read something from Marcus Aurelius or Seneca or something like that.
Yeah.
And imagine just the 3 of us got around and said, hey, what'd you think of that quote from Seneca? He said this. Andrew, what are your thoughts on that? And we just keep going around. I think those practices are really, really healthy. And I think that's like a really wonderful thing, and being like communal, like having a community.
Absolutely.
Getting around people. I've said this before, but I have like 500 something thousand people on like my Instagram, but a local preacher that has a decent following could get something way bigger arranged than I could. Because he knows so many people locally.
In the community,
yeah. And he could, I don't know, do like a fundraiser and have a shit ton of people show up there. I'm sure I could figure it out and do some stuff too, but you kind of get my point. Like, that guy might not have any following on social media, but he has a literal following in the area that he's in. So I think there's a lot of power in communal stuff, but I also start to think a little bit more like, do we need a church setting for that? And or do I personally feel that I need that? I don't really know, because I don't know anything different at this point, this stage in my life. I have thought about those things before. I have thought about like, oh, maybe I should go back to church and see if I like it. But I'm also like, well, I think I'd be going by myself. My wife, she has a different vantage point. And so, but for me anyway, just kind of answer your question, I do think it helped with morals and help keeping things in check a little bit. But I also would say that like the scare tactics that are involved in religion sometimes are just maybe a little too like, you're going to burn in hell if you do that. Like, it's like, man, that's a lot. But my wife's mother, when my wife had her first period, her mother just explained to her, she said, it's really important that you know this, from this day forward, you can get pregnant. and you're very, very young, and like, you know, if you have a boy, you know, she just ran down the whole thing right then and there. But there was no scare tactics of like heaven and hell. There was no religious thing, like if you have sex with a guy before you're 20, you're a slut or something like that. It was nothing. There was nothing like that. It was more like just very factual. Like, now you're at this stage of your life. This is now you're kind of turning into a young adult.
Practical sex education, man, needs to happen for kids, because, like, I mean, even if for me, I was like within that religious context, so I was just like, I'm not going to do it until I get married. But at the same time, even though I had sex ed in high school, the amount of unprotected sex that I had just because that wasn't talked about, like, and that was a decision I made. But at the same time, it's like, it's multifactorial.
Hey, a lot of us got lucky.
Yeah.
Right?
It's multifactorial because, like, first off, I didn't have a dad in the house, so I never had a sex talk. Ever. Me and my mom, that shit didn't come up. Why? Because I wasn't having sex. I'm a good boy. But, you know, with kids, you know, kids start getting it in 13, 14, 15. It's normal for kids to experiment. And they need to understand what they might be getting themselves into, because if they do and they're not using rubber, you end up with kids getting pregnant at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. Right? So the scare tactics are a wild thing. But, you know, I do think all of it is really interesting, because it's like, I could see my trajectory totally being changed if early on I found a deeply Christian woman. Because for me, that was the type of person that I wanted to have, a faithful person. And if we hit it off, bam, I might have been married to her super early, might have been going to church all the time, because that would have been something that, like, I know the people in my family would like, and the people in my community would also like. So I could have easily fallen into the community if I ended up with that type of person. I'm not saying that type of person's bad, but I think that being so engulfed and bathed within that community, I might have not thought differently. You know, I might have just been like, this is what the people important to me believe. And because this is what the people important to me believe, this is what my parents believe, this is what everyone in my family does, this is the right way of doing things. So it doesn't mean, again, I'm not saying Christianity is bad, because I know I learned a lot from it, but I do think that there's merit to rethinking, why do I personally believe this? Do I believe this because it's something that everyone in my family and the community closest to me is doing? Because there's a fear in going another route and alienating yourself and potentially losing the community and the people closest to you, because now you don't believe what they believe. That shit is scary. It's just like leaving any type of close friends group. It's a scary thing to do, but it's something you probably should ask yourself and maybe analyze.
Do you guys think maybe like going to church could be a helpful thing to help? It seems like a lot of people are like moving away from religion in this country. It seems that way. Keep in mind, we live on the outside edges of the United States. We don't live in the middle, where there's probably more religion there. But
absolutely,
do you guys think it'd be helpful, like, to? Because I just think that there's discussion that probably happens at church that might not happen otherwise at home. It could happen at home, and you could teach your kids about social media. You could teach your kids about these dating apps and some of the dangers of them, and how it would be fucking great if you were able to meet somebody in person. But, you know, I understand this technology is here. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Man, it's tough, because, like, you know, it's probably pretty obvious now where I stand on this, because, like, I don't really understand the need for religion. I know that, again, that sounds interesting, but with that said, I think the country would be better off if we did actually go to church more. Just because, like, I don't know, man, like, a lot of people don't have like a home base. You know, there's the social media, there's weird shit going on at school or work or whatever. You know, fatherless homes or whatever it may be. There's no like, fuck, dude, I need my safe zone. I need my spot. And
yes.
I think church can definitely be that for a lot of people, where it's like, especially like, so like, again, I grew up in a Catholic church where we did have some things, and I'll get to that later. But like in a Christian church, it's like there's a huge community aspect to it. And it's like they have so many different programs, like tons of fun, like almost like an after school type of program, like an after church thing where it's like everybody gets together. And it's like, I remember looking around being like, damn, this is a church event. Like, this is pretty fucking exciting.
Yeah.
I think more of that would be huge for this country. So again, as somebody who isn't like down with it, I think it would still serve this country very, very well.
I think some churches too can be a lot of fun. You know, I know that there's kind of more conventional churches where they just read the Bible and they have very traditional way of doing things. But the churches I've been to, the Christian churches I've been to, the pastor is like not always like in a suit and tie. I mean, he's not always dressed.
Mine was in flip-flops.
Yeah, just like just talking and just really, really funny too. Pastor Jim, who is the head of the church pastor of the church that my dad goes to. The guy's hilarious. He's from Arbuckle. He always talks about Arbuckle being the armpit of California. It's the worst place, and he's got all this funny stuff. And his son son plays the guitar, I think. And maybe he sings too, part of like the church, you know,
The
chorus.
guitar is like the staple thing of every church.
Right. And he's like, all right, you know, give it up for my son. He's going to play like intermissions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Pastor Jim comes back on the microphone. He's like, I realize my son's terrible, but, but I run the church, so he's got to play and you guys got to listen to him.
It's my show, so I get to put him in it.
He's always like talking trash and making jokes, but he has a lot of good points too. And he'll dissect. Again, they dissect a lot of the quotes, a lot of the things, a lot of the meanings. He has an initiative every single time. He has an intent. You know, today I'm going to talk about loneliness and why I think our society is so lonely. Like, what a cool thing. Then, you know, people raise their hand. They'll have testimony. They'll say, I was, you know, this happened, that happened. And, you know, they kind of go around and say, does anybody else have anything else to say? And everyone always says no. But then people go up to the pastor privately and they're like in tears and they're like, this happened to me, that happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, where else do you get to kind of unload that kind of stuff? And I've had people from churches, I've had pastors and all kinds of different people in my life that have been really religious that have had a huge impact on me. People I can just bounce stuff off of, I can say certain things to, and I don't have to worry. You know, it's like I don't know, maybe they're judging you, maybe they're going home and laughing with their wife or kids about something weird that you said, but it feels like a judgment-free thing, and you can just kind of unload your problems right then and there.
And there's things like men's groups. There's things like women's groups. They have groups, like a lot of churches has groups for married couples.
People are listening right now like, what?
Yeah. Like
They got all this at a church?
Yeah, they have married couples groups where people like married couples can go and talk and whatever. And then like church is almost somewhat like a built-in daycare. Somewhat, you know what I mean? Because you're maybe you go to your service, you leave your kids off with a teacher, and they teach your kid probably something good, but a lot of times there are fear things in there that'll kind of make a kid scared of doing certain things. But at the end of the day, it is overall positive depending on where you go. Because like obviously there's in terms of Catholic churches.
So that's what I was gonna say. I'm like if we grew up Christian, I'd probably have a different take on it. But
no, like, let me also say this real quick. There's a lot of pastors that have scammed the fuck out of their congregations. Like
I think that might be something that happened at the church I was going to. I'd never even asked. But it just all of a sudden like kind of disappeared, and I was like, that was weird.
It happens a lot in the United States, but it happens a lot in Nigeria and other countries where the interpretation that your pastor, who's this authority figure, has of the Bible can then, if they're the authority figure and they're giving you this interpretation of what they're reading and this is what it means for you as a woman, this is what it means for you as a family. There have been pastors that have slept with many people in their congregation. You know what I mean? And people have been okay with it. They've scammed money out of people because, again, they're an authority figure interpreting the word of God to you because he has that power. So it's like, I think it's overall good, but you got to be so careful.
Well, C.T. Fletcher's dad, right? Didn't that? Yeah. He ended up having
a pastor.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what I was going to say is, you know, in the Catholic Church, like it's a big ceremonial thing. Everyone's, you know, dressed in their robes and stuff. and they talk like this. They have to make it a huge deal. Oh my goodness. And I'm just like, I'm falling asleep, dude. Like, this is hard. And
I went to Catholic school as a kid, even though I wasn't Catholic.
Yeah,
That's when you gotta rip a good fart off those wooden chairs they have.
Oh, yeah.
The
Pew.
off those wooden
great
benches.
reverberation off of those
so
things.
loud.
Yeah. So every Sunday it was the same thing. It was just like, please let them stay in bed. Please. I don't want to go to church. Please.
Dude, African
And then
church
they
is horrible.
fucking walk in and like, damn, we got to go to church. Everybody was pissed.
Oh my God. African church, because I went to an African church, then I went to American church where he was wearing flip-flops as the pastor. But African church, dog, it goes like 4 hours, man. The length of time.
Starts a couple hours late too, probably.
Yeah, it starts a little bit late, goes on African time, but man, the amount of time, like the length of prayer, and you got people like shaking, dancing. And, I mean, overall, it's fun, but like it's time. It's a lot of time, you know.
There's a lot of people. Whenever I do go back to church, which is really rarely, but
Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, when I do go back,
We call them creasters.
Yeah. when I do go back, you know, I always have a good time. It's always fun. And as an adult, it's different because I don't know, if I get like fidgety or just want to like get up and like walk outside, I can, you know, but as a kid, it's like,
You get elbowed by your mom.
so we would get in trouble all the time. Like we would get spanked or hit with the belt, like just from shit from church. So then you're like, I'm trying to learn this religion over here, and I can't because I probably have ADHD and 7 other problems.
At least you stayed awake.
But this shit's boring, you know. And now I'm getting, you know, now I'm getting spanked for it or whatever. So I think there's a lot of stuff in religion, you know, that gets maybe communicated to the parents, and then the parents are trying to communicate that to their children. I think just because maybe the church shares with you that, hey, you know what, stay on top of your kids. You should be strict with them. No drugs, no sex, no swear words, no, like those things, they're probably all pretty good principles. But then I think at some point you have to figure out how you can be realistic with your own children. Like there is going to be a day, if you have a kid, there is going to be a day where they run into drugs. There is going to be a day where they run into sex. There is going to be a day where they get into a fight in school. Like all these things are going to happen, and you have to figure out, how am I going to communicate? What's the best way for me to communicate to my child in this situation so they can be safe, so they can end up being an awesome person?
Yeah.
And additionally, so they can end up being a great father or great mother. Like that's, to me, that's what I'm always thinking about. I'm like, hey man, be really fucking careful with how you react to this right now. Because do you want Jake to react this way to your grandson or your granddaughter? Like you don't want that. You don't want him reacting that way. So compose your shit. Whatever weird, silly stuff you want to say it later. Think about this a little bit more, and then how do we move forward from here in the best way? And for me, it doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with religion. You know, it's not really like a religious thing. I'm, you know, not going to flip out just because something happened that is, you know, a sin or something like that. You know, I don't even know what the hell that would even be. But but if something's like a sin or something like that, I still want to just try to handle it in the best way that I think is best for our family, not necessarily the best for a particular religion.
And you know, another thing is when I was growing up, you know, I was in the church a lot, doing a lot of stuff. I was lucky enough that my mom, you know, she put me in a lot of sports and stuff, so I was able to do stuff with other kids. But one thing that I noticed is like the way sometimes that certain Christian kids would like maybe other people who weren't Christian, or the way that they would look at people who weren't. It's an idea of like, you have the right belief. People that aren't part of this group, you love them, but they're obviously wrong. And it's looking at it now. It's like it's somewhat of a, I don't know, almost kind of dangerous idea, because you believe in this thing that this God that you have faith in. Now you can't see him, you can maybe feel him, but there's this level of faith, and faith is good. Faith can get you through a lot of things. But when now you have this faith and another group of people don't have this faith, and automatically there's this ridge where they're wrong, you're right, they're already intrinsically wrong about their belief systems. It's a tough place to be. I remember when I was younger, maybe 2021, maybe I was like 18 or 19, and I started like learning about all the gay marriage stuff because I had a friend that was gay, and I was just like, when I would think about people that were gay, I'm like, oh yeah, that's weird, that's a sin. But then I started being like, wait, they're just attracted to somebody else. And the messaging from this church or the other side, from the church, would be like, well, you know, they can be switched. You know, they can go to a type of camp or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's not what you have to be. It's a choice. But then as you talk to somebody, it's like, no, they've just been gay. Like they were just attracted to the same sex. And just the messaging from the Christian side of things, that had me kind of conflicted, because I was just like, we're supposed to love everybody. We're supposed to treat people well. And why are some of us treating these people who just have an attraction to the same sex? Why are some
all God's people, but not these people? The fuck is that, right?
I think that started to make me kind of be like, there's some things off here. Because initially I just wanted to fall into the belief system. This is something that's been taught to me, right? But my cousin was gay, and he suffered because of it. He suffered at home because of it. He's not here anymore. So it had me thinking a lot about that. And that's one of the reasons why I started to kind of reevaluate my belief, because I still believe in God. Don't get me wrong. I do still believe in God. But I don't think that the God that I believe in is the one that everybody else needs to believe in. And I also don't think that the God that everybody else believes in, or the gods that everyone else believes in, are totally invalid. They might not even be invalid at all.
I think maybe some people, you know, listening might, you know, be thinking one way or the other about this, but I'd also just say, just think about anything else that's been like propagated within your own family. Anything that is like a meme, something that's been passed on from generation to generation. That's not actually part of your genetics, your religion, your politics. Like, you're going to have just the same politics as your parents. You're going to have the same beliefs as your parents. I mean, your parents were doing the best that they could with their life scenarios and life experiences. Some of the things you look at and you're like, man, I cannot believe that you think that way. I cannot believe you talk that way. People don't do that anymore. Like, we're moving on, you know? So you're going to have very, very different views. And I realize religion is like a longer standing thing than just politics. It shifts around a bunch. But even something more innocent, like something like going to college. Everybody in this family goes to college. And then are you going to do that with your kids? Like, is it effective? You know, I guess that's some of the things to kind of think about. Like, are these things effective? And then why are they effective? And if they are effective, and you can answer a couple reasons on utilizing them for your own family, then maybe you have some really good points. But if you think that your kid can be a success, like you want your child to be successful, and you don't think they necessarily need college, then why would you just go ahead and propagate and believe in the same exact thing that your parents did, that college is everything?
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
This is more along the lines of what you were explaining, Nsima, because even before the whole gay marriage thing sparked up and religious people were getting upset, I was already kind of like off the boat. But like, this just kind of it reminded me of this in regards to, like, we're being very nitpicky, right? Or some people are, right? They're picking certain things out of the Bible, like, oh, you're sinning. But so check this out. So Earth, scroll down, solar system. So we're zooming out, solar interstellars, Milky Way galaxy, a bunch of other galaxies and shit.
Virgo supercluster.
Virgo superclusters, the local superclusters, observable universe, and then at the very top is God telling you not to masturbate. So, because that's a sin. Okay.
I did a lot of sinning. I did so much sinning.
So what I'm getting at is, like, yeah, we get very nitpicky, right? Like, oh, out of all the things, all right, oh, you're gay. Okay, yeah, you're sinning. Okay. But then like there's a lot of other shit from what I understand, right? Like you're not supposed to shave or something like that. You're not supposed to wear silk.
That isn't necessarily in Christianity, but there are like, I'm not going to.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah,
I
there are
apologize,
other
but there's a
sects
lot of things that are supposed to be sins that a lot of people overlook, but then they'll grasp on the one that they just like, that's the one, bunch of sinners. It reminded me of that meme where it's like keep zooming out, and at the very end, it's God pointing at you saying, "Don't jack off."
Para Project family, how's it going? Now, Piedmontese Beef is a company we've been eating literally for years now because they have some of the best beef on the market, tons of cuts, tons of different types of beef. Check them out. Andrew, where can they get it?
At Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. And at checkout, enter promo code POWER to save 25% off your entire order. And if your order is $150 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Yeah. You know, the conversation we had with Daryl Davis, and if you guys remember, Daryl Davis is the guy who he has derobed many men of the Ku Klux Klan, meaning they gave him their robes when they were in the Klan. But you heard the stories where he mentioned that some of these young men and women were literally just brought up in the Klan. So they had the belief of their parents that black people were subhuman and they should not mate with, they are the master race. That's just what they believed. And they were never able to talk to someone who was black, and they never like looked at that person with any type of respect. But when he spoke to them, he was actually able to be like, hey, I'm not comparing Christianity to KKK, just follow me here. He was able to, convince them otherwise. So it's the same thing where it's like when you're brought up under a belief system and it's what your family believes, it's maybe what your grandparents and great-grandparents have believed, it's what your community that's closest to you believes, you will be under the impression that this is what I also must believe because look at how much good it's done for the people around me. But when you talk to somebody outside of that belief, your knee-jerk reaction is like, you're wrong. That's not it. That's not what my people believe. But it might be cool to have a cool conversation with that person and see maybe why they think certain things. I know that when it comes to the Quran and when it comes to people that are Muslim, there's a knee-jerk reaction to people to see all of the things that have come out of that book that have been like, oh, this is pretty bad. You die and you have this amount of wives and like all the type of stuff in there. But, understanding some of it will help you maybe understand why some of these people go about their lives the way they do. Because they're coming from the side of that's also their whole community. Where they're from, when they come from the US, but where they're from, everybody believes in that same thing. It would be good to have a better understanding of their belief systems and maybe not automatically think that they're sinners or they're wrong or whatever. But it's just, it's a very interesting thing now that the world is so connected. Because I wonder, would we have these viewpoints if there was no internet? I've learned so much shit from the internet. I've seen so many things from different parts of the world because of the internet. But like, if this was in 1970, would we be able to be so open?
I think religion is something that you can because we have such great technology, you can look up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can find out a lot of information. I mean, there's theories that some very, very smart, intelligent people believe that all religion is associated with psychedelics. It's a really fascinating thing. But again, if you think of the suffering that people went through over many, many centuries, and if you were to go to somebody and let's just say they gave you psilocybin mushrooms and they're like, we're going to do this ceremony and you're going to have these because that person came to you because they weren't feeling well. They were sad, they were mad, they were depressed, they were whatever. You gave them these mushrooms and they had this out of this world experience and you're telling them that you can communicate with God. You might start to buy into that or even without them saying anything, you might think that that's a special person that has some sort of ability to connect you to some of these things. I know Joe Rogan talks about it a lot. He's had some different guests on there. And that kind of brings me to my next point is the information that you take in, don't just listen to Joe Rogan. Please don't listen to us and take what we say as gospel, right? Go and explore and listen to other stuff. And I think
if you do that, you need Jesus.
You will need Jesus immediately. But look into these things yourself and observe them yourself. And maybe you already have. And maybe you already come to your conclusion. Maybe you are already fired up and going to church and you love it and it's great for you and your family, then I think that's awesome. For me, having my parents, believe so much in religion and believe, in a particular God, I just don't believe in that. I don't believe in I guess the God the way that the Bible lays everything out. I don't believe everything in there to be true. But I do believe that there is some sort of higher power. I do believe there's something larger at play. I don't know exactly what it is or how it works. But the other thing is that we could sit here and talk about it forever and we're never going to know. And there's not a person on earth that does know. And if there was a person on earth that does know, we would think they're full of shit. If they're like, no, I talk to Jesus. I talk to God. I'm right there next to him. You'd be like,
hella people
you're gonna have to figure out a way to. So it would be very difficult to prove one way. It'd be very difficult to prove the other. There are things in science that kind of show. I think most Bibles say that the Earth is like 7,000 years old. It seems like we have completely different information than that. But I also think that it's up to you on what you want to believe. You can believe the science and you can believe in religion. Some people are like, no, you can't have it both ways because religion suspends the actual facts of science. I think that you can. I think you can work it out in your own way and you can think about it. I think that's again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, no one knows why we're here. You don't know what your purpose is, but I think it's your job to figure out what your purpose is. I say I'm here to make the world a better place to live. Is that my actual thing? No, fucking made it up. So I have a goal. So I have something I can be part of, something that I can develop and work on over however long I'm here for.
Yeah. But that shit was funny. One thing I am curious about, and I just think about this is like, how can, at the point that I do have a kid, how can I recreate some of the community aspect that we had?
You whoop his ass.
Well, but I mean, what I'm getting at is like, church was such an awesome community. Like, I get why my mom and my grandma and everyone went every single Sunday for decades, because this community that you can constantly go back to and everybody believes what they believe in a similar thing, and pretty much the morality aspect of things, all of it is good. Like you feel as if you're going into a room with good intentioned, well-meaning people, hundreds of them. Like
everyone's really happy to see each other. When you see people like once a week, it's perfect amount.
Hey, hope you're doing well. Yeah, buddy, hope you're doing well, champ. It's just like, yeah, dude.
And the parents or the adults get to talk about, everyone has all the same problems. Their kids are listening to music that they don't like. The kids are online doing stuff that they all get to work out their problems and communicate. And oh, my kid's doing the same fucking thing.
Oh, go talk to Jeff because his kid is doing the same thing.
He has through it.
Yeah, right. Like exactly. It's like it's a community of people. Some of them, a lot of them have kids. But if some kids are acting up, like you just chuck them off to somebody else, and maybe they'll be able to help. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
How do we get that outside of potentially church? Like we had to that's what I'm trying to think of. Maybe the answer is right there and I'm just not smart enough to see it. But
well, maybe the answer is just to go to church.
Maybe the answer is to go to church.
Or jiu-jitsu.
Church is really interesting. I always say that fitness should be like church. Oh, come on. No, we're not like the other spots you've been to. Like you just come in on a Sunday, like just come on in. Oh, you got your girlfriend with you. Okay, bring her on in too. And then you're sitting there for a while and then they give you pamphlets and then they talk about Wednesday's service. And they're talking about these gatherings that they have. We have a Bible reading, tomorrow night or whatever, they just keep, but with fitness, I think it should be the same way. You just keep encouraging people to come in, be like, oh, we're just going to do a little bit of biceps. And then next thing you have them doing some legs and right. Next thing you know, you got yourself a bodybuilder on your hands.
But the wild thing is like when you go to church, you're encouraged to talk to other people. Like it's like when you go to the gym with someone, y'all like lifting and then you're out. But church, you're encouraged to talk to people about your life. Like it's almost like going on a date with somebody. You start getting to know, like you're put in that position. Now there are other things you can do to network and do things with people in the community.
Women dress up to go to church too. Damn.
They do.
Yeah. That's another bonus. Going to church.
Now you got a couple more dudes going. Yeah, but I mean that's I call it people power though. Like, you're closed in a box. It doesn't matter what the box is. It's a CrossFit box or a church. Like you're surrounded by other cool people with the same like mindset, and that's why like I may not be religious, but I sure as heckin' believe in prayer. Like I 1000% believe in prayer, and I almost want to like can guarantee that works. What I mean is like if I don't know, we had like 30 people surrounding Nsima and we all put our hands out or we point at him like J.L. Holdsworth did, you know, like we can get him to feel that, right? We can push light and love through Nsima with that. Does that mean that it's God doing that? I don't know. I don't know what that is. I always replace God with universe. Like when somebody says, oh, thank God, I say, oh, thank the universe. That's my version of it.
Blasphemer.
I've had this conversation with Charlie, right? Like he has very strong faith, and like we have really cool open conversations. And you know where he'll say God and I'll say universe, and I'll be like, yeah, the universe chose you for X, Y, and Z, and it'll make sense to him. But what I'm getting at is like, yeah, I think prayer and the power of people. You know, we're souls, right? I think we all possess that ability to, you know, like I said, push light and love through somebody. But again, I think it gets really lost and muddied up in the religious side of things.
I think prayer is huge. I mean, it's kind of a little bit like affirmations in a way. The Bible, like one of the first things it says, one of the first things the Bible talks about is if you need something, just ask. I mean, that's life. Life is that way. You need something, just ask. You want to get better at jiu-jitsu? Ask the guy next to you. He doesn't know. Ask him if he knows somebody that knows. You want to make more money? Ask somebody. You want to get better at lifting? Now you can even like ask your phone. You can ask Siri. You can ask these chat things, and there's all kinds of information. It's the cool thing is it's always been there. You know, the information has always been there. It's always been a person, just one person away. That's not really too far to travel, you know, to find a person. Never mind just the technology piece. If you just ask people, say, hey, I'm looking for a car. You know, I have a kid. It's going to be 16. You know anybody selling like a used car but still reliable? It's good, you know, decent price. And they're like, I don't know. And then they ask a couple people, and they come back to you a couple of days later and like, yeah, so weird, man. My cousin's selling a car.
Yeah, what happens is they
like, what the fuck?
They don't even necessarily look for it. They're just like, oh, I do. What's going on? And I haven't seen you in a while. What you up to? Like, oh, I'm trying to sell my car. Like, that's so weird. Yeah, I just talked to my again. That's 1000% real.
And a prayer, I think, is just something that you're kind of putting out there. You know, it's maybe it's something that's a problem in your life, and you're kind of putting that out there, and you're kind of asking for help, but ultimately you know who needs to solve the problem, right? Like even if you believe in God, you're going to believe that God led you to something or some opportunity to get yourself better, to help you with whatever problem you had or another family member.
And so that's one of the big issues I have with extremely religious people is they will say like, oh, I'm just going to leave it in God's hands and not really strive to do anything to help correct the situation, whether it be marital issues or like whatever it is, insert issue. I did my part. I'm just going to leave it up to God now. Like, well, is there really nothing else you can do right here, right now? Like you're done. You're basically saying, I'm tapping out. I'm going to let some higher power take over for me. Maybe it works out for you. Maybe it doesn't. But I don't think it really works that way. My opinion.
Yeah, maybe do both. You know, maybe pray and
exactly, but try.
Yeah, say like it's it's God's will, or I'm gonna leave it up to God, but you're still putting in some sort of work towards it, right?
Yeah, you know, like there's a lot we can do with action, but the faith is comforting, and it's not just comforting. It's something that helps you sometimes just not stress about a certain situation. Like when someone says, "I'm going to leave it in God's hands," maybe. Sometimes you've done all you can, and at this point, it's like you have someone you've been trying to help out, and you've done what you can. Leave it in God's hands. I've done what I could, you know, and that in and of itself will relieve you of that pressure of consistently trying to stress about it because it's in God's hands. Faith is a very interesting thing. I think that's partially, and I don't know. It's just we've talked about this a bit, but like Alcoholics Anonymous, like one big aspect of AA is having faith. Is building that structure. And then, I mean, believing God and having faith. Like that's a big, that like whenever you talk to somebody who's been able to, they've been in AA, they've battled with alcohol, and they come out the other end, they have a faith, they have Christianity or whatever, and that's something that guides them. That's something that helps them. So I do get what you're saying, where it's like maybe there are some people who just throw their hands up and like, I'm leaving in God's hands. But when, I guess like when I've heard my mom and my grandma, like the people in my family that whenever that's come out, right, they've done what they could, and they do have faith in God. Where okay, I'm gonna leave this to God because God will help His hand, and they do, and they have their faith in it, and I think that that's actually a good thing at some point. At least if you are taking some action, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's very well said, actually. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, control what you can control, and then what you can't, disregard it. But in this case, you're not just saying disregard it. You're also like putting some positive vibes towards it, and praying, and having that faith that the good outcome will come your way. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
I got my boys that message me, hey, pray for me. I got this going on. I can't actually do anything for them, but I can pray for them, and I do. I'll message my friends sometimes, hey, pray for me. This is happening. They'll pray for me, and I'm thankful for that because somebody is putting something out there in your benefit. And if, like you mentioned, right, where people putting their hands on somebody, they can feel it. Well, people putting their good thoughts out there to whatever in your favor or in your son's favor, and they're just praying for the goodness and benefits for your life and his life. I mean, some people think it absolutely does nothing, but I think that does something good.
I think it does a lot of good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look up this thing from Tim Tebow.
Oh, Tim Tebow.
God, it was really good.
What's funny? For a long time too, when I was younger, I was scared of saying like, "Oh my God." Is that saying God's name in vain? Like,
yeah, like
or Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Story's too long. It's too long to share it here, but like basically, he put a verse on his
eye black,
on his eye black that you wear. Like a lot of times they wear this eye black to block out the reflection sometimes you get from the lights at football. And so he put a religious thing there, and then his team won a bunch of games, and he went to his dad and he was like, hey, I'm thinking of changing it, and like he told a bunch of other people, told his mom, and he told a bunch, and they're like, that's great. You get another message out there because people keep talking about it. I don't know what the message was previously, but his dad flipped out, and his dad was like, whoa. He's like, did you tell coach? He's like, you better talk to coach because the coach is really superstitious. And the coach was like, wait a second, what are you trying to do? Anyway, kind of as the story goes,
of course it was 3.
I think he changed it to John 3:16, and just all these things happened, like where the team, and I'm sure he's kind of like finding coincidences, like these things can happen, but he's finding that the ratings were 3.16 and like all these different things happen. And basically all of this to say that via just changing the message that he had on there and the team doing well, he had an opportunity to share the message of John 3:16 with like millions and millions of people. And so he was like super grateful. It was a really cool speech, the way he kind of laid it all out there. But he was talking about his wishes, and he was talking about his prayer, and he was talking about his belief and faith and how he felt that that's what led him there in the first place. And I'm like, that is, fuck, man, why not? Why not live your life like that? That seems really cool. Like that's what he believes in. Could you imagine how incredible he must have felt that entire time to be playing that sport on that level, and then to also be able to deliver a positive message to as many people as he had access to?
Yeah.
Probably made him feel incredible. So it's you're right. I think belief. There you go. Austin 3:16 means I just whooped your ass. A little different.
Man. Yeah, let us know your thoughts, guys. We're really curious about like what you've come to terms with as far as your belief systems and religion or other religions. Just like, what are your thoughts on this? Curious.
Yeah, and try not to let some of your experiences, like if you had a bad experience in church or something like that, try not to have that completely dismantle, all belief in religion, or if you've seen it maybe not work out great for a friend or something, to try to figure out if it's something that that fits you, and try to figure out organize your own thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Sure thing. All right, real quick. If any family members are watching, let's just pretend that this didn't happen, and because I don't think we're gonna really get anywhere.
I got a saucy question for you. You can decline if you want, but did you have to do anything with your kid that you didn't want to do because of religious stuff? Did you think it mattered or didn't matter, or I don't know?
Yeah, we had to have a conversation about it, right? And Catholic Church, there's baptism's huge. It's kind of like the number one thing you have to do for your kid. And I just said I didn't want to do it. And we go back and forth a little bit here and there on religion and stuff, but I don't talk negatively about religion. I obviously don't make fun of her for any of it. I will, when family gets in a prayer circle, I participate. Yeah. I don't know the verses and stuff, but I am very respectful, and I try to be a part of it because I do believe in prayer and stuff. I just don't necessarily believe in that type of religious whatever it's called. So that is going to definitely be something that gets more conversations need to be had in regards to my son and religious or whatever direction we go. What's up?
I think also, as he gets older, you can teach him about the religions that have been around you, and you can say, this is the decision that we made when you were young, and you can make your own decisions with your own kids. This is the way. I think just awareness is critical, but yeah, we never baptized my kids, or we never did anything like that. And luckily in our family, we don't really have someone that's so kind of religious that they were like, his kids aren't baptized.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I have a question for both of y'all. You can decline. You can answer. Y'all capped or snipped? I'm snipped.
Oh, I don't mind.
Are you capped or snipped?
No, I got that sleeve, son.
You're capped.
What do you
got a full on sleeve?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, uncircumcised.
So it comes out of.
Yeah,
you have more sensation.
I don't need lube.
Yeah.
Hey now,
man. Capped.
Yeah,
snipped?
You got snipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got snipped.
My son's not. He's
capped.
We left him alone. Yeah,
He's got his cap.
Oh, okay, I get it because he's capped.
Yeah, leave it all on there.
Yeah. That's something that that's an interesting one, huh?
It is interesting.
It's an interesting one because if we're being real, I got snipped because of the Bible. My mom did that because that's your boy's supposed to get snipped, right?
Serves no purpose.
But it's not natural, right? Right?
You're supposed to have your skin. It doesn't, when you think about it, you should have your foreskin, right?
Yeah, you should have it.
All the skin you were born with, you should probably have all of it.
You should probably have it. And then did you? Oh fuck! Here we go. Rabbis, because traditionally, did you? Yes. So they were passing around STDs and shit to these poor little babies because the way they're traditionally, I think there's. I am so sorry, everybody.
You want to look this up real quick? Just read it.
No, I don't want to do that because it's just going to sound funnier. I believe there's traditionally used to just bite it off. So now, at least what they transitioned to was they got it done correctly, or fuck, I don't know. They did it not with teeth, but to keep the tradition, or maybe something to do with saliva. They would basically kind of just put their mouth on it to keep the tradition going. And when they did that, kids were getting all kinds of illnesses and shit.
I'm going to say this incorrectly. Metziza b'peh, direct oral suctioning. When a baby is circumcised, some ritual Jewish circumcisers, mohelim, do a practice called metziza b'peh. Is when a mohel uses their mouth to suck blood away from the baby's circumcision wound as part of the circumcision ritual. So they've already been circumcised. They don't bite away the foreskin eating a chicken wing. after
when it has that extra skin, that's always good.
Ranch dressing.
After this, some babies can get an infection. So
yeah.
Foreskin in the air fryer would probably be pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. I'd imagine so.
Did you
a little bit of lemon pepper?
Yeah. Did you end up keeping the placenta?
No.
I heard some people cook that shit up.
We joked around about it, saying it. Yeah, that thing looks weird. When you have your son or your kid,
yeah,
it's whoa, that whole bag. It's just really weird. All of that, the whole thing is weird.
All right, guys, comment down below. Capture Snip. Let's go.
Yeah, Capture Snip.
Snip Club.
I already told you guys what I am, and that's supposed to be embarrassing to a lot of people. I don't give a fuck. I'm married, and we're all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, drop those comments down below. Capture Snipped, and make sure you guys hit that like button. Don't know how this episode's gonna do in regards to like the algorithm and all that stuff. I don't know what religion is like, how well it's accepted on these platforms, but just in case, please comment and hit that like button. Subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project all over the place. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z, and don't forget powerproject.live. And Nsima, where you at?
They did me like Goku when they cut off his tail. Nsima Inyang on YouTube and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark.
Thank you guys for listening. Special shout out to JC right here, who's on every single show.
There you go.
Of course, talking about John Cena. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. I'm at Mark Smiley Bell. Catch you guys later. Bye.